Yeah, both Landorus on both sides looking solid into either Terror type that these trainers have chosen for their Raging Bolt. Let's go. It's our first top 8 match here at the Utrecht special event. It's Fluttermane alongside Incineroar and Landorus and Ogerpon with the Half-Flame Mask for Aurelien.
What a phenomenal lead actually coming out right now, because this Icy Wind from Iker's end really is threatening so much damage into that Landorus. It has to go on the defensive if it wants to take that even nearly well, and that Ogerpon Half-Flame definitely doesn't want a speed drop going into the later stages of this game. So Aurelien really needs to think about what they're going to do versus that. Now, a really safe play for Aurelien that you might have seen already is maybe like a double kind of protect to kind of waste the turn of the fake out and kind of maybe reveal what the Fluttermane is going to do into this turn. It's not choice spec, so it's not going to be locking into anything, but a really good play for Iker might be to actually switch that Incineroar out immediately, not even go for that parting shot and get in something completely for free that might be making the most of this. Say, for instance, their own Landorus that can actually threaten this Ogerpon, even if there isn't an Icy Wind drop on it.
Masterfully summarized there, David. Incineroar getting on out of there. He doesn't like to be in the classroom because Landorus is going to be joining the fray instead. Ogerpon is going to be going for the spiky shield in the face of what would have been a fake out, and the Landorus is going to follow suit. It's fairly safe in this position. It's not like the Fluttermane over on Iker's side can boost up its stats. That was the Icy Wind coming out, would have been very detrimental into Aurelien's Landorus and dealing neutral damage into the Ogerpon, but crucially would have been getting that speed drop. We'll see if Iker is going to be going for that on the following turn. Landorus now facing each other down, looking into the mirror.
And here we go, another mirror, as you say, Charlie. Which Landorus is faster? That's going to make a big difference here too, especially when the taunt on the play, because you can then stop a substitute from potentially coming out from Iker's end as well. The Fluttermane still obviously threatening that Icy Wind, very much so. Ogerpon Half-Flame is naturally faster than Landorus, and may be so here if depending on Aurelien's choosing, but an Icy Wind followed up by another Earth Power or a Sludge Bomb, especially into that slot, could be very detrimental to this Ogerpon Half-Flame's staying power on the field.
Well, speaking of staying power, it's got in on out of there as Rillaboom is going to hit the field instead, providing a nice percussive rhythm to proceedings. That's Grassy Surge being kicked off on the battlefield in the face of Icy Wind, now able to connect from Iker's Fluttermane. That is a damage calculation Aurelien will be more than familiar with, given the omnipresence of Fluttermane right now in the format. That's a speed drop on both Pokemon. Earth Power rising up from the ground into this Rillaboom that's just joined the fray, and now that's going to be a responding Earth Power into the Fluttermane, known more for its special bulk. And now all of the Pokemon that are grounded, that is everything apart from the Landorus, will be getting a little bit of recovery. So Iker got some good damage down on the field.
That's a really big turn, obviously, for Iker, to be honest. Rillaboom coming in and taking so much damage is going to be really big here. And you can see why it took so much damage, too. It's not that Assault Vest that we often see. It's the Miracle Seed instead. So it's taking so much damage here. Now, going to the following turn, the KO is now threatened on this Landorus thanks to another Icy Wind if it was to come out. But that Fluttermane might be now in range of a Grassy Glide. And Iker may need to be switching in an instant if it wants to be able to survive.
Well, Fluttermane isn't liking the look of a Grassy Glide right now, going for a Protect, and so is Iker's Landorus, copying Aurelien on the very first turn of this game. That was going to be the Grassy Glide landing into the Fluttermane to try and take it out so that the Landorus could get more done in this battle, and an Earth Power connecting down into the Fluttermane slot as well, just to secure it. But now, heading into the next turn, all bets are off.
Exactly. So double protect for Aurelien on turn 1, double protect for Iker on turn 2. So now we're going to the next turn, and maybe we might start to see some KOs here, because Fluttermane needs to switch to something to be able to take it. But for Aurelien, a Grassy Glide plus Earth Power looks so safe into that slot, because Incineroar can't really switch in here. It will just completely go down to the Earth Power that is following up here. But at least a trade will potentially be made if Iker goes for the Sludge Bomb into that Rillaboom slot.
So it is going to be the Ogerpon coming in instead of the Incineroar. Is going to be its Water-type friend, as the Grassy Glide is going to be doing neutral damage right into that slot. The Sludge Bomb going to be super effective. That is Rillaboom down and out for Aurelien right now. So Iker does have the Pokemon advantage, and the Landorus over on Aurelien's side will be going for the Earth Power. Not very effective on the Ogerpon, but it is so low.
It really is so low. And unfortunately, the Grassy Glide is no longer an option on the Rillaboom, at least. So the Ogerpon can still hang around a little bit longer. But of course, there is the Ogerpon Half-Flame, the second Grassy Glide user of this team. So it needs to make the most of these grassy terrain turns to be able to throw those attacks out. Oh, apologies, sorry, it doesn't actually have Grassy Glide. It's that Wood Hammer instead. So actually, that's even more damage coming out, but without the priority that Aurelien may actually be needing here.
Well, let's see if it is needed, as Incineroar is going to join the fray and drop the the attack of, crucially, the Ogerpon over on Aurelien's side of the field. Ogerpon itself going for that spiky shield, going for Hedgehog mode, making sure it's not taking any damage this turn. And so is Iker's own Ogerpon going to follow suit right now. Fairly positional game so far. The Earth Power was indeed going into the Ogerpon slot over on Iker's side. So the trainers have already got some decent damage down, but heading into the rest of the game, there will be some more decisive action coming up shortly.
So interesting to see there that Aurelien's Ogerpon Half-Flame is faster than the Ogerpon Wellspring on Iker's end. So a fake out into either of these slots isn't going to stop the Ogerpon Water from going down on Iker's end, because either of Aurelien's Pokemon can target it down and just get that KO. So the question is, does Ogerpon go on the defensive here, maybe switch into that Landorus, so it can take an Earth Power out Sludge Bomb very, very well instead?
No, it's not. It's going to be Landorus for Aurelien, keeping itself safe behind its Protect Shield, and fake out instead, connecting down correctly into Aurelien's Half-Flame Ogerpon, leaving the Ogerpon over on Iker's side able to get the Ivy Cudgel into the Landorus, but of course it is blocked by that Protect.
So it looks like Iker's quite confident, actually, that the Ogerpon Wellspring that he's trained here is faster than the Landorus Incarnate on Aurelien's end. So it makes sense that Aurelien definitely wants to go on the defensive here for the Landorus. Speed control seems to be really important in this game at the moment, but Aurelien's out of options for it, honestly. And with no glide on the Ogerpon Half-Flame, as soon as something's faster on Iker's end, he's suddenly in such a big advantage. The Fluttermate's still in the back as well, which could totally still outspeed things in the end game. So it's really on this, like, Ogerpon really to target into whatever slot Aurelien is not going to play defensively with.
What is Ogerpon going for? It's a bold switch from Aurelien into the single strike style Urshifu, and it's finally time for a terastallization here in our first top 8 at the Utrecht special event. Is going to be the Incineroar, and it's become even scarier than it once was with the Ghost Terra type. Seems to be the most common Terra type right now on Incineroar, but is that going to pay dividends as the Ogerpon goes for another spiky shield there, gets that off, even in the face of the Urshifu that's just come in, and that's Woodhammer down into that slot once more. So both trainers calling the Protect really wisely. Of course, a little bit of recoil damage thanks to the spiky shield, but Flare Blitz connects down into the single strike style. Urshifu deals a decent amount of damage, but takes it pretty well. But is there going to be a burn coming off from that Flare Blitz? Fortunately for Aurelien, no, there is not.
No, that would have made a massive difference, honestly, turning that 3-hit KO into a 2-hit KO and slowly whittling down the timer of that Urshifu and reducing the damage it can offer. But not today, says Aurelien's Urshifu, as it now goes into the next turn. Pretty confident, honestly. Wicked Blow looks so strong now into either of these targets, just as the instant went for that Terra Ghost. So a really nice play from Aurelien to kind of bring that Urshifu in, potentially predicting that Terra Ghost there. And now Wicked Blow is likely threatening a potential 1-hit KO now onto both of these slots. And with no obvious switch in either, because the Fluttermate isn't pure fairy yet, it's looking really good for Aurelien right now.
Yeah, Aurelien has finally decided that they're in the position they need to with the single strike Urshifu on the field. It's time for Aurelien to respond with their own Terra. One of these Pokemon has decided new turn, new me, and it's going to be the Ogerpon Half-Flame going for that Fire Terra, getting an immediate boost to its attack thanks to its Embody Aspect ability. It's lost its Grass type typing, so it would be taking super effective damage from Earth Power coming out from Landorus, but it's able to act first, going for the Ivy Cudgel, connecting down into the Ogerpon Wellspring. That's going to be enough as a neutral hit with a critical hit to boot for the knockout.
And there is a huge knockout, but now we have the Urshifu following up. Yes, it is that Wicked Blow. We don't know what it was been targeting, but it's definitely into that Landorus, doing a massive chunk into that slot. And the Ogerpon Half-Flame most likely still outspeeds it going into the next turn. So again, threatening another knockout. However, Iker does have that Incineroar still in the back. And so bringing it in here would make a lot of sense to threaten that fake out into either slot. Likely also, the Landorus is faster than the Urshifu. However, the Landorus is definitely in range of a Sucker Punch, but Iker does have the advantage of having the substitute to potentially try and call that. So we've got a bit of a Sucker Punch mind games here at the moment, assuming Fake Out goes into that Ogerpon Half-Flame slot here. And also, the Ogerpon isn't as threatening as the attack is slowly being whittled away too, but of course, the Wicked Blow is always powerful here. And with -1, it may still be enough into that Landorus, honestly. It just depends depends on the training of both of these Pokemon. We'll have to see, Jolly.
Yeah, well, Sucker Punch mind games are plenty, and of course, fake out mind games as well. You can go for the Protect and get around that. It's not like Landorus can boost up, and that's exactly what Iker is going for. Ogerpon will be flinching and not acting this turn. Landorus does indeed go for the substitute. You called it there. David is now sitting pretty behind that lovely plushy Dole, and Wicked Blow going right into that slot. Is this going to be enough to break the substitute? It most probably will be based on the damage it did on the previous turn, and yes, it is. So Landorus bought itself one more turn on the field. Substitute faded. We'll have to see if that's enough.
A really good call from Aurelien there, because they definitely left their Urshifu open to just being KO'd from that Landorus there. So Iker obviously was then trying to call the Sucker Punch to potentially like not go down, but now with the Protect, it's not going to save itself from an Urshifu if the Wicked Blow targets into that slot.
Well, exactly. Unseen Fist is going to be able to hit through the Protect there. An entirely invisible punch coming Landorus's way, if that is what it's gone for. But no, it's Wicked Blow into the Incineroar. Super effective thanks to that Terra Ghost. The Terra Ghost that Iker went for earlier coming back to bite him, unfortunately. And so now Iker down to just the Flutter Mane and the Landorus, but where there's speed control with that Flutter Mane, there might just be a way.
There might be, but unfortunately the booster energy has been already used up. So this Flutter Mane's going to come in again, but not have the speed increase that it had before. So this is where the training in the Flutter Mane comes into like a really crucial moment, because Flutter Mane can be naturally faster than both of these Pokemon, but if you're using a booster energy set, you might not want to be as super speedy anyway, and might be a little bit actually slower. So let's see if this Flutter Mane actually still is enough to outspeed these two fast Pokemon on Aurelien's end. What
are the speed interactions going to be? It's going to be Sucker Punch, which obviously always goes first as a priority move. It fails potentially into that Landorus, and Moonblast is going to be connecting down into the Urshifu. Doubly super effective, taking out that Pokemon. So really good call there from Iker, able to remove that Urshifu before it got up to any havoc. But here comes a big Ivy Cudgel. Aurelien makes the call, and it is into the Flutter Mane. Flutter Mane is down, and it's just Landorus on Iker's side versus Landorus and Ogerpon on Aurelien's.
Oh yeah, Aurelien played that really smart there. Landorus Incarnate has too little HP to go for another substitute, so Sucker Punch can't be punished at that point. You just cover that slot really nicely, and then you know that Ogerpon can just safely get the KO onto that Flutter Mane because it can't threaten a KO back. It's not that Choice Specs variant, for instance. So now with two Pokemon versus one, Aurelien's looking at like in a really strong position to take this game one.
Ivy Cudgel right down into the Landorus, and that is a hit for the ages. That is Aurelien taking game one here in our first top 8 match of the Utrecht special event, proving why they've gone 14-0 so far.
Aurelien's played that fantastically in that game one. The positioning and the calls of the switches were excellent there. Honestly, I think the really pivotal moment was that Urshifu single strike switch. As soon as that Incineroar went for the defensive terror into the Ghost type to potentially take that Earth power from the Landorus Incarnate, putting it in such a strong position to threaten knockouts wherever it wanted. So an amazing, amazing call.
Yeah, Urshifu, even though it's risky to bring it in from the back, it's not the bulkiest Pokemon. That is exactly what Aurelien needed in that situation. And I think for Iker, yes, it seemed like the Ghost Terror onto the Incineroar was maybe slightly too early. It's always such a tough call to make as to when you are going to Terrastalize, and you know, fair enough to Iker for going for the Ghost Terror there, but fundamentally at the end of the game it did not come into help. Now David, approaching this game 2, what are you thinking?
Well, Aurelien had a really nice game plan there, but I wouldn't be surprised if Iker maybe goes for something similar, because I think the Flutter Mane with the booster energy is something that's really hard for Aurelien to deal with unless they bring their own form of speed control here. The Raging Bolt, for instance, could be really nice. It is that Assault Vest, and so it's not standing down a Flutter Mane that's with Choice Specs or with the Terror, like to deal a lot of damage to it. So it could still probably sit on the field, take a few hits and get off those Electro Webs. That could be absolutely massive. Now, what is really good for Iker at the moment is that Landorus, because on Aurelien's end, there is the Icy Wind on their own Flutter Mane, but there's no water type like an Ogerpon Wellspring or an Urshifu Rapid Strike to deal with it. So the Landorus on Iker's end is the main target, I think, that Aurelien needs to be really careful of.
Well, is it going to be coming out in the first position? No, it's going to be Flutter Mane and the Incineroar over for Iker, and Flutter Mane and the Ogerpon with the Half Flame Mask over on the side of Aurelien, so there could well be a fake out coming out into the Ogerpon, but if it goes for Spiky Shield, a little bit of chip damage in return, and all of that chip will start to add up. Now, that is the Photosynthesis going off first on Aurelien's Flutter Mane, getting a boost to its speed, followed by Iker's right now, and this booster energy is going to be activating also its speed thanks to the Photosynthesis ability.
Yeah, good call there, Charlie. That's going to be really big information for both of these trainers. And obviously, Aurelien's probably very happy about that as well. That means an Icy Wind or any other move like that Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam could be really effective before it's going to be targeted by the opposing Fluttermane. Now, interestingly, both of these players don't have Shadow Ball on either end, so both are neither are threatening a KO into either end.
Right, and Fluttermanes are just going to be staring each other down from behind their Protect right now on the field, not wanting to play any mind games, and so is Aurelien's Ogerpon. So Aurelien once again playing slow and steady as Parting Shot was trying to connect down into the Fluttermane on Aurelien's side, get a drop to the attack and special attack so that another Pokemon in the back can come in more safely.
Yes, Aurelien is not falling for it a second time. Iker obviously switches Incineroar out in that game one immediately, expecting the double Protect, and then Iker maybe goes for expecting Aurelien to do something different, but they don't. So a really nice call here. And instead, it's a Terra onto the Ogerpon half lane, getting that +1 attack and dealing probably a lot of damage into the next turn.
Ogerpon's embody aspect is at large here, as is the mask on Ogerpon's face, as Dazzling Gleam connecting down, dealing respectable neutral damage to both targets. Moonblast connecting into Aurelien's own Fluttermane, both really bulky on their special side, of course, and there's a big Ivy Cudgel into the Fluttermane. It's connecting down. That is a knockout for Aurelien so early on in game 2.
That's a huge, huge KO. There was so much back and forth with these two trainers. Is it actually going to be another KO? Yes, it is.
There we go.
There's the Flare Blitz into that slot as well. So another really, really good call from Iker too. So both Fluttermanes down straight away. All this talk about like speed control and Icy Wind mind games and everything. Completely out the window, Charlie. It's just raw damage here in top 8.
Let's just click the attack button. And that's exactly what Aurelien and Iker did on that previous turn. They've now got their foot on the gas. The firepower on the field right now is nothing to be ignored. And now Urshifu is in, arguably for free. The Fluttermane went down, but Aurelien had to switch in from the back in the previous game. And now with one knockout apiece, Fluttermane's down, so are those Icy Winds.
Indeed. So the speed control is mostly off the board, as it kind of was in game 1, honestly. But Urshifu is in a really nice position to be threatening that damage. Obviously, that close combat into that Incineroar is a really tempting offer for Aurelien, but of course, the Terragosa is always that option. So Rillaboom's coming in here, which makes a lot of sense too. It's pretty safe. Incineroar's probably not going to be flare blitzing that slot before, and it's so good into that Ogerpon Wellspring.
It certainly is. Incineroar not liking the look of what's on the field right now. Going to the back, and it's going to be Landorus swooping in on its Cloud instead over on Iker's side. Ivy Cudgel, water into the Rillaboom, going to be a resisted hit there. No critical hit to speak of. Close combat into the Landorus, going to take that much better than the Incineroar would have done, thanks to being resisted by that part flying type. So a really good call there by Iker.
Yeah, so a nice safe switch there. Being able to take a Wicked Blow as well, if that was kind of the call that Aurelien wanted to try and make there too. Either way, it would have come out of that turn mostly unscathed. And we also kind of saw that potentially Landorus can actually take a Wicked Blow plus a -1 Sucker Punch, depending on what Iker was thinking as well. So now Rillaboom is on the field and threatens a Fake Out into this turn. So this Urshifu's looking really nice. We have that classic duo of Fake Out plus an Urshifu that can blow through Protects. So the opponent isn't going to be tempted to go for a Protect in front of this duo.
What we definitely know is Incineroar is going to be re-entering the ring, ready to throw down and intimidate, Parting Shot, Fake Out, all that good Incineroar stuff. Both physical attackers over on Aurelien's side, and indeed in the back too. So the Incineroar, it does have a bit of a target on its back now for Aurelien. Earth Power into the Urshifu, brings it down to its focus sash, thanks to the drop to defense and special defense that it received on the previous turn, having gone for the close combat. But 1 HP is infinitely more than 0. Wicked Blow connecting down into the Incineroar with, of course, that guaranteed critical hit. Incineroar, though, just gets an opportunity for a bit of R&R, having its berry.
Yeah, exactly. Why not in the middle of top 8? Just kind of have your lunch.
It does what it wants.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, well, Incin can obviously do what it wants. It's really proved its worth to so many trainers. But going into this next turn now, you can see that Iker has been making some really defensive switches that have been really paying off as well. But Aurelien still, regardless, been getting damage consistently across the board into all of Iker's Pokemon, putting everything in range of either a Glassy Glide for Rillaboom potentially in the late game, or an attack from the Ogerpon half lane, which outspeeds the entirety of Iker's team.
Right, and of course, Rillaboom, as long as the grassy terrain is on the field, can go for those priority grassy glides. Ogerpon doesn't have aspect to it, to the grassy glide, but of course, with the embody aspect, does get that immediate boost to its attack. It's time for a responding Terra over on Iker's side, and this Pokemon of choice will be the Landorus this time. This is going to be a Terra Steel Landorus, a Landorus that has molded its Earth power right all the way up to Metallic Steel, as it's ready to dazzle its way through to victory. Rillaboom going for the Protect, of course, holding the Miracle Seed rather than the Assault Vest on Aurelien's team. Fake Out, though, connecting wisely down into Aurelien's Ogerpon. Landorus able to set up a substitute here, sitting pretty behind that plushie doll. Of course, Ogerpon is threatening super effective damage, given it's now Terra Steel.
That doll might not look like much, but that's honestly such a massive turn for Iker. Aurelien so punished for the defensive play that they've just made there. And now this Landorus sitting behind a substitute, and with that Terra Steel is looking really nice. Before the Terra Steel, it would have likely been able to go down to a Grassy Glide from this Rillaboom. Now it's still going to be able to resist it and not even lose its substitute. So it's looking so safe now. So Aurelien needs to work out what they're going to do to kind of try and get rid of this Landorus' substitute, because once you do that, then you still need to deal with the Landorus like that's behind it. Plus, the Incineroar has now just come in and can go for another fake out into the Rillaboom or the Ogerpon half lane. So it's looking really nice for Iker going into the next turn.
Landorus has taken that target right off Incineroar's back and put it on itself, therefore going for the Protect, and if that is a double up into Iker's Landorus slot, then that is leaving this Incineroar entirely free to get up to its feline antics, and that's exactly what Aurelien has committed to. So Iker buys the Incineroar return here. What is the move it's going to lock into? It's going to be Flare Blitz, super effective, into the Rillaboom on Aurelien's side. It's not enough for the knockout right now. Rillaboom still hanging on, and that could be crucial heading into the later stages of the game.
Yeah, it definitely could. This Rillaboom offers a lot thanks to those grassy terrain, those Miracle Seed boosted grass attacks that it still does have. So, and as we can see, thank you to Aurelien, that it is the last turn of grassy terrain as well. So it definitely makes Iker a little bit more calm to say once that grassy terrain eventually does expire.
Well, Spiky Shield right now coming out from Aurelien's Ogerpon, keeping itself safe as Earth Power is connecting down into that slot. So Landorus is still sitting pretty behind this substitute, and the Rillaboom going for a last-ditch attempt to break it with the Wood Hammer. Not very effective into the steel, but is it going to be enough to break the substitute? Yes, it is, boosted by that Miracle Seed, and indeed the grassy terrain. Now the Landorus is grounded, having gone for that Steel Terror, removing its flying typing. Parting Shot is coming down onto the Rillaboom. Incineroar really doesn't like the fact that it's broken Landorus' substitute, and so it's going back angrily to Iker in favor of the Ogerpon Wellspring that's going to be coming in and threatening the Ogerpon on Aurelien's side, but there is still Grassy Glide on the field.
Yeah, Grassy Glide is on the field, but without the grassy terrain. This is going to be the last turn of healing now for all of these players, or the Pokemon rather, on the field. And again, revealing the Half Flame is still faster than the Landorus Incarnate. So actually going to the next turn, there was a missed opportunity to KO the Rillaboom here, but actually, for Iker, you probably want it to stay on the field. It's not doing a lot right now, because you wanted that Urshifu to come in and then start threatening much more damage. Rillaboom's still not doing a whole lot here at the moment, and is still in range of a KO. There's nothing punishing this Landorus going for an Earth Power into that Ogerpon slot again. And the Urshifu's on 1 HP is going to go down anyway, and so the Rillaboom can't do much in return to a Terra Steel Landorus. So Iker's actually done a really nice job of kind of leaving the Pokemon that are not a threat at all on the field, so that he can still pressure down the Ogerpon now that it's protected.
Well, exactly, and the problem with running Protect and Miracle Seed on the Rillaboom, of course, is it doesn't have access to a ground type move that would be super effective into the Landorus right now. Yet another Intimidate drop to these two physical attackers as Incineroar comes back, and now that's going to be Urshifu joining the field once more. It's on such low health. Is it going to be able to get in for free? Let's see, trainers, on just 12 HP. Ivy Cudgel from Aurelien going off first into the neutrally effective Ogerpon. Over on Iker's side, that's a lot of damage, even with the Intimidate drop, proving how crucial the Intimidate was. A super effective responding Ivy Cudgel into Aurelien's Ogerpon. That is a one-hit knockout, and Aurelien brought down to two very low health Pokemon indeed.
That's a massive knockout for Iker there. Like, he could have done the play of, say, follow me with the Ogerpon and then attack with Landorus. That would have kind of been equally potentially good as well. And then Ogerpon maybe still takes the same amount of damage. But at least Incineroar is now on the field this time. But Rillaboom and Urshifu do get away with it. Yeah. As you say, they can still offer a lot here at the moment. So Fake Out can be traded here, or the Rillaboom can fake out into the Incineroar slot instead, can no longer go for that Ghost Terror because the Landorus has already committed it, and then Urshifu can then maybe outspeed and then take another KO. However, I think we've seen this Ogerpon Wellspring is actually pretty quick, and so it's the Sucker Punch that may need to come out to be able to KO it, unless, of course, the Ogerpon goes to that Follow Me or the Spiky Shield to go on the defensive from it as well. So Aurelien has a decision to make as to whether go straight for that attack or maybe that Sucker Punch to be able to get around that Ogerpon Wellspring if it goes for the attack.
Follow Me, Sucker Punch mind games are everywhere in Regulation Set F. Incineroar is going to be going to the back, and it's going to be Landorus rejoining the fray instead. Iker playing this masterfully, Grassy Glide. Oh, with what looks like a critical hit into the, into the Landorus. Boosted by Miracle Seed and Grassy Terrain, though it was. Ivy Cudgel going to be easy enough to tie up the Urshifu now, so it's just Aurelien's Rillaboom against the fire, the water and the grass, and now the steel over on Iker's side of the field. It's incredibly low health, but it does have priority with the Grassy Glide.
Amazing play from Iker there, just kind of hitting straight down the line, going, right, yeah, but you might Sucker Punch, but I'm just going to go straight for what Ogerpon does best in that Ivy Cudgel and just gets a massive KO on that Urshifu. And now keeping the Landorus safe with that Follow Me, this Landorus should be able to get the KO on this Rillaboom in the subsequent turn.
Yeah, Landorus can just go for a very safe Sludge Bomb here, so Iker seems to have rebalanced the tables, and it seems like we are going to be going to a Game 3 between these two incredible trainers. A masterclass right now at the Utrecht special event. The atmosphere in the venue is incredible. The crowd is applauding no end. I'm so excited to see what these trainers have up their sleeve in Game 3, and is it going to be a complete change-up?
It's a great question, Charlie. And I thought it was really interesting, actually, that Iker led with the same Pokemon, having, despite losing with that same lead in Game 1, he just went Incineroar Flutter Mane. Also, he didn't get the turn 1 right in that he didn't make the most of retreating Incin like he did in that Game 1 as well. But it still really paid off. And what's the reason for that, though? And the reason I feel like is that Iker really played well with that Landorus, being to substitute at the exact right time, earth parrying into the targets that really mattered, and making the most of what the speed interactions of his Pokemon too, because the Ogerpon Half-Flame was able to dish out obviously a lot of damage, but the Incineroar was the really key piece that also was able to mitigate the damage that Ogerpon Half-Flame does, which normally takes one-hit KOs, and as soon as it didn't take a KO, it was left susceptible to whatever was next, because Earth Power threatens a KO, Ivy Cudgel threatens a KO, so as soon as Aurelien gives any space for either of those attacks, it goes down.
Right, and then the special attacker was down and out so early on as well in the Flutter Mane. And when you've only got physical attackers remaining, the Incineroar is looking even better than it once was. So potentially that's something Aurelien is going to be looking to conserve. But then you cast her over to the Raging Bolt. Of course, if it terastallizes, it's still going to be taking super effective damage from the Landorus, so it's a risky call to make. But then if you're wanting to bring a different special attacker, then there is your own Landorus over on Aurelien's side of the field as well. For now, it's going to be the run back of the lead from Iker. It's going to be the Flutter Mane and the Incineroar, and there it is. There is Aurelien's Landorus hitting the field, or it would be if it were grounded, alongside the Ogerpon with the Half-Flame Mask.
So Aurelien has actually gone back to the lead that they led in Game 1. So the one that basically worked for them, which makes a lot of sense too. So now we're back to the mind games again of does this Incineroar switch out turn 1, as it did, because this is the mirror of Game 1 right now. So Aurelien might want to switch things up a little bit here, honestly, because it took a lot of damage from the Icy Wind in that Game 1, over half as well. So knowing that, Aurelien may want to go on the defensive here. And Ogerpon Half-Flame is not looking too hot either, because staring down a Fake Out, staring down a Fire type that it can't do much into, and Intimidated as well. You can't make the most of it at the moment. But it looks like Iker is going for the same players to turn 1, so let's see if Aurelien catches it this time or not.
Landorus coming right back into the battle as Ogerpon does go for the Spiky Shield. This is what Aurelien has favoured doing in all the games so far. The double protect on turn 1. Incineroar wisely not going for a parting shot because it would not have worked into two protecting Pokemon. Icy Wind attempting to drop the speeds of both of Aurelien's Pokemon on the field, but of course sitting pretty behind their protect shields. Flutter Mane still out on the field, of course, now alongside the Landorus, which threatens super effective damage into the Ogerpon, so putting Aurelien's own Ogerpon under a little bit of pressure.
It definitely is. Now, Iker has a really safe turn here of potentially just Icy Winding and then Earth Parrying or Sludge Bombing that Ogerpon Half-Flame slot it depends on what Iker has gone for as to whether this Ogerpon goes down this turn or not. So Aurelien's making a very risky play right now, calling the Sludge Bomb instead of that Earth Power to see if it will survive and maybe get a KO of its own.
Well, Icy Wind is going to be doing huge damage to the ground and flying type Landorus right now. The Ogerpon is back up at neutral attack thanks to the Embody Aspect boost. Both of the speeds will be dropping. It's going to be Sludge Bomb, so a good call by Aurelien right now. It does not take super effective damage from the Earth Power. Let's see how much this neutral AV Cudgel does with the Fire Terror to boost it up. It's not enough for the knockout. Landorus only on about a sixth of its health there. Earth Power will be connecting into Fluttermane. Really good damage into that slot as well. So an explosive turn of events.
That was a risky play from Aurelien, honestly. Like, either of those slots could have gone down, but yeah, a really good call. Knowing the Sludge Bomb was coming over there instead of that Earth Power means Ogerpon gets away unscathed. But Iker now threatens the double KO on this turn now. Icy Wind into, obviously, the Landorus takes the KO. It can't Terra out of that weakness either. And the Landorus can follow up with a KO too. So Aurelien's going to need to take down one of their own Pokemon to bring in something that can then help further support in the rest of the turn.
We'll have to see if that is the call. Moonblast going into that slot. Really nice to cover for a switch that Aurelien might have been making. Ogerpon is going to remain on the field behind its shield, and a Sludge Bomb connecting down into that slot once more. So now Aurelien gets the free switch in. Might be a Pokemon down, but as long as you are able to get a Pokemon in for free, that could pay dividends later on. And of course, Iker and Aurelien both have one unrevealed Pokemon as of yet.
Rillaboom is a really nice switch in right now because, as you can see, Grassy Glide threatens to KO into either of these slots, but only one. And Iker could make the decision to just attack with both and then accept that one goes down, but I might take a KO of my own. But it looks like Iker wants to try and preserve both and goes on the defensive. Yeah,
Incineroar will be re-entering, dropping that Intimidate down onto both of these physical attackers. Now the Landorus is down. It may well just be physical attackers in the back for Aurelien. So Incineroar is certainly the Pokemon that Iker wants to be bringing in right now. Urshifu is going to be joining the field. Protect coming out from the Landorus, potentially keeping itself safe from a Grassy Glide that Rillaboom could have opted for. That's exactly what Aurelien was trying to do. Both of these top-tier trainers just calling each other turn for turn.
Yeah, another really defensive switch there, which is absolutely fantastic. And the fake out turn is gone from Rillaboom, so Iker again maybe has a slight advantage here going into the next turn, being able to have that fake out advantage to be able to kind of get around some of the attacks that Aurelien can go for. However, the Landorus is on quite low health right now, so a substitute may not be possible depending on how much is left there. And that leaves either of these targets, the Rillaboom or the Urshifu, to take a KO on that slot too. And we've also seen the Rillaboom survive a Flare Blitz, so Aurelien's probably not in range of a KO on either slot.
Well, especially if the Landorus goes for the Terra Steel right now, that's going to be keeping it even safer from a Grassy Glide coming out from Rillaboom. Fake out will be connecting into the Urshifu, crucially breaking that focus sash held by it. Rillaboom gets speedy straight into the Landorus on Iker's side. It's not enough for the knockout with a responding Sludge Bomb. Is it going to be enough for the knockout? Yes, it is! There's no Assault Vest on that Rillaboom. It goes right down thanks to holding the Miracle Seed. That is absolutely huge for Iker.
That is a massive, massive turn. Landorus hanging on by a Slither right now. And Urshifu also gets its focus sash broken. However, Aurelien still has a shot. The Urshifu can still protect and get another turn of that grassy terrain recovery that might then put it up to full health, meaning it can take 2 attacks going forward. Ogerpon half lane coming in is also really critical too. It still outspeeds the rest of Iker's team, bar that Fluttermane that's in the back. But the question is that Incineroar, looking so healthy right now, it needs to be targeted by the Urshifu at the moment. So if Iker makes a call and switches this Incineroar into a Fluttermane potentially, Aurelien needs to call whether that's happening or not.
And that is the Fluttermane coming in. Get your head out of the clouds, Fluttermane, because you've got to wake up and get lively to the game happening in front of you. Landorus is going for the protect. Iker in a fantastic position right now. Has Aurelien called it. That is going to be the Ivy Cudgel into the Fluttermane.
Yeah.
Is that going to be enough for the knockout into the Fluttermane? Yes, of course it is. Fluttermane on relatively low health there. So
my goodness.
now this is Iker down to 3 Pokemon. Aurelien possibly able to turn this around.
Yes, they've gone for the Wicked Blow
into the Landorus. It's going to hit right through that protect, and it is down. So now it's going to be Incineroar and whatever Iker has lurking in the back. This could not be closer.
That was the perfect play for Aurelien to kind of turn this game around. From 4-2 down, they're now 2-2 apiece. And now we know that Iker's bringing that Ogerpon Wellspring every game. So if that's still in the back, that's looking really nice for Iker, to be honest, at the moment. But still, this Ogerpon half lane is really, really strong. But is the question is, a Wood Hammer going to be enough to KO, or even that Ivy Cudgel as well, depending on what happens? Terra is off the board for Iker, so that can't happen either. So it's a fairly safe turn this turn. It's the double protect for Aurelien. No downside to doing that at the moment.
Absolutely, and of course, thanks to the grassy terrain, that Urshifu now has its focus sash back intact. So it will have to take 2 attacks before it goes down. So Aurelien really got themselves in a much better position here as they decide to burn this fake out turn from that fiery Incineroar.
Yeah, into the Urshifu. Makes a lot of sense. You don't want to take that spiky shield damage because this is a fairly telegraphed play. And there is the Ivy Cudgel as well. Into that Ogerpon. Not a contact move, so won't be taking the spiky shield chip. But yes, this is the turn now that we need to be focusing on. The Urshifu we know can take another hit. But yes, as you can see, close combat into that Incineroar slot is going to be really big. But with that Intimidate, it might be able to still take that hit. Oh, there's a spiky shield! I think we know where Aurelien's targeted.
That's a big call there. That's going to be the Ogerpon going for the spiky shield. Would hammer down into the Incineroar. That's a decent amount of damage, and the crowd is absolutely on the edge of their seats. It's close combat down into the Incineroar. It's enough for the knockout. Aurelien has brought it back. He's at 2 Pokemon, down to Iker's just 1, but it is on full health.
It certainly is at full health, but Aurelien has the advantage right now. Urshifu still can take any attack from this Ogerpon. It's just a wicked blow and an Ivy Cudgel into this Ogerpon to take this down. Ogerpon needs to spike his shield forever to take this. Yes, Aurelien Soula takes the game. The top 8 advances to the top 4, still undefeated.